Okay, this is the Netivot Shalom shir, regular weekly shir. And we talk about this week's Parsha Korach, and specifically one aspect of Korach. So we know that Korach led a rebellion against Moshe, and he was claiming that, you know, we're just as holy as everybody else. All of the people are holy, and why don't you pick us for certain services? And Moshe tried to calm them down, and they wouldn't listen. And the end of the story is Korach and his 250 followers were swallowed up alive into the ground. Very strange kind of punishment. But what was the basis? What caused Korach to do this? Korach wasn't just somebody who wasn't learned. He was a very, he had a lot of chachma, and he had a lot of prestige. So what caused him to do this? So this is what the Netivot Shalom is going to be talking about. It says the pagam, the defect in Korach, was the aspect of yishut, of his ego. And let's just see what the Netivot Shalom says. Vayikach Korach, that's how the parsha starts. Zohar Kodesh, East Zohar Kodesh, the Korach ozim machlokes chulu. The Zohar Kodesh says that Korach held on to dispute, to machlokas. Machlokas plug to the shalom. A fight, a dispute, machlokas, is the opposite of shalom. The very Indian Korach, the Pligel Shalom, to explain the aspect of Korach who was fighting against peace, against shalom. If you think that he was just holding on to the machlokas, yesh lamadine shalom machlokas she plukta the shalom yesh lahem shoresh penime midas hayishut. It's not just an exterior thing where you see two people fighting. It says the concept of machlokas is a constant fight, an internal fight between a person's ego and shalom. Adam shu bechinas yesh, a person who thinks of himself as he's it. Shetofes makom be'enei atzmo, he holds on to a place in his own eyes. Nidbalo shechavero mafriya lo omed bedarko. If he's only thinking about himself, he says it's like somebody who's walking along the way, and a friend of his is disturbing him on the way. The friend wasn't doing anything bad. He didn't mean anything bad by it. Wasn't doing a bad thing. He was talking to him, whatever he was doing to disturb him, was mafriya him. Nonetheless, we talk midos hayishut shelo, because of his ego. Yesh lo es hargasha, he had the feeling, kihu mafriya lo, that he was bothering him. But tofes es makomo, and he was trying to take his place. Umizeh ba lemachlokas, and this is how we come to machlokas. Shalom shu hefech machlokas. Shalom, peace, which is the opposite of fighting. Ba mimidas ayin. It comes from the aspect of ayin, nothingness, nullification of yourself. Shu bitul hayishus, nullification of your ego. Shekasher machnia es atzmo, lagamri l'Hashem yisborach. After you submit yourself totally to God, umishaber bavata yishuso, and you break and you nullify your ego, oz ish enam afriyalo, then nobody's going to be able to disturb you. You're not going to be disturbed by anything anybody does. Ain omei lo b'darko, and nobody's going to stand in your way. You're going to get rid of those thoughts that you had. V'chai im kulam b'shalom, you'll then be able to live with everybody in peace. V'nei midas hayishus, this aspect of ego, hu hashoresh pora rosh la'ana shekala midas haras. That is the branch, the leaves, the trees, the foundation for all kinds of bad qualities. Hakina, jealousy, vatava, improper desire, vatkavod, seeking honor, hamotziin es hadamina olam. Those are three things that we say in Pirkei Avos will drive a person from this world. Shor sham b'midas ishus. Their root, the root of these three things of jealousy, desire, and seeking honor, the root of them is your own ego. Kina novat miyishu. Jealousy comes from your ego. I'm much greater than him. Why does he have what I don't have? Why is he driving that fancy car? I'm driving an old car. That's not right. Tava novat miyishut. Desire comes from ego. Look, if I want something, why can't I have it? I'm entitled. I mean, look who I am. Ach, be'ikar novat midat hakavod miyishut. And most importantly is the concept of trying to get kavod, trying to seek honor. That comes from ego. And there's a saying somewhere in the Gemara that if a person is seeking honor, it's going to run away from him. But if he's not seeking honor, it's going to run after him. She'ikar hayishus bisbate b'inyan hagava. The aspect of ego, it shows itself through haughtiness. Pagam Korach, and that was the pagam, that was the defect in Korach. The midas hagavos, limkor midas hishus. He had the quality of haughtiness that came from his ego. If you have your ego is so strong that you think that, I'm the most important person in the world, then you're going to have pride. You're going to have haughtiness. And we're not talking about pride in what you accomplish. That's okay to have pride in that. But to think that it's all you and you're better than anybody else, that was the problem. And that was his problem. Was that? So that was the makor. It says gava, haughtiness is the makor, the basis, the foundation of the quality of the bad quality of an ego. And therefore he was fighting against shalom, against peace. The whole aspect of shalom is just the opposite. The aspect of shalom is to nullify your ego and get to the point of nothingness. I'm nothing, as Avraham Avinu said, "Ani afar v'efer," I'm dust and ashes. Moshe Rabbeinu took it a step further. Dust and ashes have materiality. Moshe Rabbeinu said, "Ma'ani, what am I?" That's even more anava. And that's why Moshe Rabbeinu is called Anav Mikol Adam, the most humble of all people. Me'ai Tama, Cholak al Moshe Rabbeinu, Shemidas Bechinas Ayin. And for that reason, you have two opposites that were fighting one another. He was fighting against Moshe, whose quality was the quality to completely eradicate any semblance of ego. Here he was, the leader of this nation, and he says, Moani, what am I? Vandakomer, as we say, Moshe was more, had more humility than any person on the face of the earth. Kind of a simile that is brought in the Mishnah of Rabbi Natan, almost to Rabbi Natan. It says that you have all these, you can have all these physical problems, boils, skin problems that would cause you to feel, not so great about yourself. Moshe was lower in spirit than all of them. He was more humble than any of them. Baruch Chazal. Okay, so Shizu Haisa Midaso Yuchedesh Shamos. This was the unique quality of Moshe. Show you Anam Ma'od Mikol Adam Asher Pnei Adam. He was more humble than anybody else in this world. Because of Allah HaTorah, and the Torah wrote about him specifically. Davka Midazu. He had many qualities, Moshe. But what is the Torah? How does the Torah describe him? It describes him as an Anam, as a humble man. Anam Mikol Adam. Why? Because this quality of humility encompasses all of his other qualities. When you get to the point of being able to nullify your ego, the ekrim mikirbo, you remove from your midst, your midst, call hamidos harot, all of the bad qualities. And by getting rid of those things, you're making room for all the good qualities to come in. And based on this, the Zohar HaKodesh continues. He says, the Korach palig al shema the Kodesh Baruch Hu. Korach wasn't only fighting against Moshe, but he was fighting against Hashem. The man the palig al shalom, whoever fights against peace, palig al shema kudusha ikre shalom. If you're fighting against peace and you are fostering fighting between human beings, especially between brothers, between one Jew and another, you are fighting against God, because the name of God is called Shalom. An ego is the barrier between a person and Hashem. Only you can come close to Hashem is by nullifying your ego. This defect of feeling you're better than anybody else, of pride, haughtiness. That's the main branch of the midah, the quality of an ego. Chazal say, Shakadosh Baruch Hu Omer al Mizgah. Hashem says about somebody who is haughty, he says, Ein ani v'hu yecholim lador. I can't live together with this person. We can't live in this same world. I can't bear somebody who has haughtiness. I can't live with him. Every bad quality that you could think of, you don't find something so strict, so sharp as this statement that saying that I can't be with this person together in the world. But Korach, Korach, who fell in this defect of ego and haughtiness, because of this, because of that, he was separating himself and fighting with the name of with Hashem, whose name is Shalom. Think about. We don't often think about when we're fighting with somebody, we get a locus. There's unfortunately many locus around. You have to realize that locus isn't with that person that you're fighting with, but the locus is with Hashem. And if you think about that, then maybe you will do what Chazal taught us to do with the Shemona Esrei. At the end of the Shemona Esrei, we take 3 steps backwards. Oser Shalom Imroma, God made peace above. Uyasa Shalom Aleinu, He shall make peace to us. I'll call Yisrael and over all Israel. You take those 3 steps. When you're ready to have a machlokus with somebody, take 3 steps back. Give yourself time. Think about what's going to happen if you have this machlokus. What are you fighting about? And who are you fighting? Is it your ego? And 99.5% of the time, it's your ego. Because you want to win this battle. You want to prove that you're right. Everybody wants to prove that they're right. And we see this example so many times. In proving that you're right, you could be fighting God. Do you want to fight God? I suggest you shouldn't. The Zohar Kodesh says also, he says, not only do you fight God when you have a machlokas, but the polig al Shabbos, you're fighting Shabbos. Shabbos is peace above and below. Shabbos Kodesh, hu yom hadvekut shel Yisrael b'Hashem Yisborach. Shabbos is the day of close connection, of cleaving between Bnei Yisrael and Hashem. You cannot go into Shabbos with an inflated ego. Baal Shem Tov HaKodesh. Baal Shem Tov said, this is what I understand what the sages have taught us. Beis Erev Shabbos, Siman Yafalo. It's a wonderful siman, it's a wonderful sign if you die Erev Shabbos. What does that mean? The Hainu, Kishashir Babo Shabbos Kodesh, what it means when Shabbos Kodesh, the Holy Shabbos comes in, Mevatel Lagamri Yas Atzmo, you are totally nullifying yourself. You're nullifying yourself and all of your ego as if you were dead. This is a good simon by which you can come into Shabbos. Zohar Kodesh says, Hafach Boshes Batishkach Shabbos. Change Boshes, same letters, right? Shabbos is Shin Beit Tov, Boshes Beit Shin Tov. Boshes is shame. Shame. Turn your shame into Shabbos. When just before Shabbos, when your heart is breaking, when you're thinking about all the bad things, the difficult things you've done to remove yourself farther away from Hashem, when you're thinking about that, your heart is breaking of it. You're doing tshuva before you go into Shabbos. You're empty of everything. Shabbos Kodesh. How can I go into Shabbos after what I've done all week long? How can I do that? So this is what it means. We nullify your ego completely. Then Shabbos will come. Shaboshes v'ashivron leiv, shame and the breaking of the heart. Hem gufo mahavim ba'ado as Charlie calls Shabbos Kodesh. That opens up the gate to go into Shabbos. The broken heart, the recognition that you've done something wrong. I think there's no such, nothing as whole as a broken heart. Because through that broken heart, you're able to come into Shabbos in a perfect way. So Korach, who was fighting with his aspect of his ego and his bava, his haughtiness, Ayu Mecholik al Shabbos to Shlama de Almev. He was fighting against Shabbos, which is peace above and below. And he goes on to say, V'od, Zohar says, Korach Pali al HaTorah. Not only was Korach fighting Moshe, fighting against Hashem, fighting against Hashabbos, against Shabbos, but fighting against the Torah as well. Why? The ways of the Torah are ways of pleasantness. Shalom. And all of its paths are paths of peace. That's why you read the Sefer, the Netivot Shalom, the paths of peace, trying to teach you how to live as a Jew in the paths of peace. Then Yano, Komar Chazal, and it's as Chazal have told us, God spoke to Moshe in the Sinai Desert. We just had this parsha a few weeks ago. The Torah is accessible to somebody who makes himself like a desert, like a wilderness. In the wilderness, you have no need for anything. Whoever doesn't make himself like a wilderness that is free of any materiality, says the Torah, you can't receive the Torah. Torah, in order to receive the Torah, you've got to nullify completely the ego, so that you can be like a midbar. Chomer Chazal tell us in Brachas, Ein Divrei Torah Miskayimim Elvi Shememis Atzmo Aleha. The words of Torah do not last in anybody unless they really, literally it says they die over it, but it doesn't mean they die over it. They really apply themselves. They really work hard at it. Learning Torah is not an easy task. It's a constant thing. Day and night, you should think about Torah. So you really have to work at it. And that's the only way that the Torah is going to continue in you. Meaning that you kill your ego and your own personal desires to be able to acquire Torah. This is how Korach was fighting the Torah, which is called Shalom. Through Achos Maridas Hayishus, he grabbed hold of this quality of ego. Through Hefach Bechinas Ayin, just the opposite of nullification. Ubito Hayishus Hanidras Lekanyana Torah. And it's opposite of the nullification of the ego that is necessary to acquire Torah. And this is the root of the fight in the name of God. On Shabbos, Val Torah, on the Torah. Because the aspect of haughtiness is contrary to these things. And that's what's written about Korach. He was lost. He was nullified from the generation. He was gone. You have to understand. Why was Korach and his followers? Why were Korach and his followers punished so strongly? That they were completely lost, completely nullified from the congregation, from all Bnei Yisrael. We don't find in any of the most stringent sins do we find the punishment so strict as to completely blot somebody out, blot them out of their memory, blot them out of the book. Sefer Beis Avram, as it says, Al Pasuk Uvo Ha'ovdim Be'eretz Ashur, Anidochim Be'eretz Mitzrayim. The Ovdim will come from the land of Eretz Ashur, land of Ashur, and the Nidochim will come from Eretz Mitzrayim. What does that mean? The Ovdim Be'eretz Ashur, meaning Hainu Pagam Hagavos, Hagios. These are the people that have the defect of haughtiness. Ashur Melashon Chozak Batkifa. The land of Ashur refers to this holding on strong and grabbing hold. He grabs in his own eyes, and he holds on to his ego. The second sentence, part of that sentence, those are the ones who are totally wrapped up in the.
I had it, but I think I gave it to Ellie when I asked him to do something for me, so I gave him the wrong money.
What?
He changes it, like, I don't know, 250s or something, just to break the sound, so I gotta give him 450. Okay.
She has her mic open. I think Hamasara's mic is. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Now it's closed.
That means those who are so enveloped in the desires of Egypt, Rs of Korach, the most immoral place in the world. Shnikra nidach al shem shaholech bidechi el dechi, means they're pushed away. They go from being pushed away. Aval, even though they're pushed away, Enu Oved, they're not lost, they're not completely wiped out as the Ovdim Meretz Ashur. Mashenkein Hagavos hi Hamida Hagarua Bioter. We see that the Daiva is the worst quality. Haughtiness is the worst quality. Shadnofli ba Hema Ovdim, because those that fall for it, fall into it, they're lost. Those that are enveloped in their desires, even though they're pushed away, they're able to see the depths of their situation. They're able to push aside from themselves the true thing to get before Hashem. Those people, even though they're pushed away, there's still hope for them. They're not lost. Mashenken over the Eretz Ashur, contrary to those Eretz Ashur, Takif Badatov Ein Lo Klaus Shivron Lev Al Matzav. They don't feel any sorrow. They're not broken heart over the Matzav. There's no hope for them. How can you get out of a situation where you don't feel that you're doing anything wrong? I mean, the Rambam, when he talks about tshuva, he says you need three things for tshuva, and I've coined them as the 3 Rs of tshuva. You need first thing you need is recognition. You have to recognize that you've done something wrong, and these people aren't recognizing they've done something wrong, so they can't possibly get out of that situation. Second is when you have the opportunity. The second part of it is resolve. The second are resolve not to do it again. The third is when you have the opportunity to do it again, refrain, that you actually don't do it. Those are the 3 Rs. But the first one, the recognition, was absent here. They don't recognize the depth of what they've done. That's why it says all the congregation of Korach were completely nullified, completely lost from the Kal. Saying that somebody who has this quality of haughtiness, it's the aspect of being totally lost. Moshe, seeing this, what did he do? He fell on his face. And this is why it says he fell on his face. Why? Because you Moshe, when Moshe saw Shemikabros called Kach Klipos Hayishus, when he saw that this quality, this midah of ego was so strong, Hashorish Pora Rosh Lana Lachal Amidos Haros, the strongest of all of the bad midos, Lachem Vayipol Al Panav. Then he fell on his face. Why? What's mean falling on your face? It means stretching out completely before God. What is that? Shehu Inyan Hachna. That is the aspect of submissiveness. You're submitting yourself to Hashem. Just the opposite of haughtiness. And of course, we know on Yom Kippur, we have 5 times that we actually nofel al panav. We fall on our faces, basically stretch out completely, showing that we are completely subjugating ourselves to Hashem. So that's what Moshe was doing as a counterweight to this haughtiness. Gabriel Klipas Hayishus, says the Or of Israel. He wanted to overcome this klipa of Yishus, this egotistical thing that was overtaking all of Israel. He was afraid. He was afraid everybody would fall prey to it. So he did this to wake them up. He had to submit himself. Through that, he was able to break the power of this negative power, Shelahem of them. And the Torah teaches us in this parsha, if because of the defect of this quality of being egotistical, you are punished so that to the extent that you are lost from the congregation of Israel, Haramida Tova Maruba, there you learn from that. You can learn from that bad thing a very good midah. What is that? Right, this the opposite. Right? They beat the Hayishus by nullifying this ego. You reach the highest possible levels. Even if you're not worthy of reaching these high levels because of other things that you have done, if you're working to nullify your ego, the kocho with your strength, it will protect you against and lift you up to all other, lift you up to a higher level, higher elevation. That's the message. That's the message of Korach. And we see it's a message that we applied today because we see it. I don't want to talk about. I don't want to get into politics, but you see certain people who may be in politics and let their egos decide what to do instead of the people they represent. And it's not only in politics; it's everyone. The example that he gave of you see your friend and you think he's trying to disturb you. Why? Because it's your ego. Your ego sees it. It's not really happening, but you perceive it, and that perception causes you to think bad of somebody, and to worse than that, to have a machlokes. So it's a hard job, and sometimes it seems like we can't do anything about getting shalom, but we can because it takes 2 people to have a machlokes. And if one of them is not willing to fight, you can't have a machlokes. So my blessing to all of us is that we should strive to find shalom in our lives, to be able to stop machlokes, to stop a fight, not engage in it, and to ask ourselves, do I really want to get into this fight? Do I really want to fight against Hashem, against Shabbos, against the Torah? Is that what I really want? Or should I take 3 steps back and cool off a little thank you for listening. And wish everybody a good rest of the week. Question? Do you have any questions? Anybody have any questions? Yes, sorry. We're open for questions.
No questions, just thank you. Thank you so much, Nate. It's
You're
great.
welcome. Thank you.
Hi, Karen.
Hi, Amy.
How you doing?
One, okay, thank God.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me stop the recording before you. Just a second, please.